My name is Glen Murray, and I'm a candidate for Premier of Ontario and leader of the Liberal Party. There are some very critical issues facing all Ontarians. One of them is that the middle class and modest income Ontarians have not benefited as well in this new economy. They've lost ground. Wealthier people are doing much better. So I'm proposing to cut taxes for middle income and low income Ontarians by between $300 and $1,000, depending on the size of their family and the number of children they have. That's really important for those families because it puts more income into their pockets. And as 65% of our jobs and our economic growth are dependent on middle-class consumer spending, it'll help boost our economy. So that's one really clear idea that I think will help all Ontarians. And our new economy in Ontario is doing quite well. We've recovered 140% of the jobs we lost. That means there are more people working in Ontario now than before the recession. But those jobs are coming from different places. About less than 5% of businesses, so 1 in 20 businesses, are producing about 5 out of 10 jobs, almost 50% of the jobs. But these businesses aren't like the businesses in the old economy. These are small, high-growth innovation businesses. They're in engineering, design, creativity. They're finance businesses. They're information technology businesses, clean technology businesses. And they're popping up everywhere from Cornwall to Kenora. But they have some challenges. To keep growing these jobs, we need two things. We need more money available to invest in these businesses so when they want to expand, they can get the dollars they need to grow and to grow jobs for our children and our parents and to keep us employed. So I'm proposing some tax cuts that will make more money available for the businesses that are growing, that will make Ontario more attractive to invest in, bring more dollars here than anywhere else in North America to grow those jobs. And I laid that out really clearly and costed it out. It will also bring about $2 billion more tax revenue in, not from raising taxes, but from increased economic activity. More companies starting, more people being employed, growing the tax base. That'll help us pay down our deficit, protect our education and healthcare system. So that tax breaks for small business, really big, important part of growing our economy and growing our prosperity. I come from a family of immigrants. My grandmother came to Hamilton way back in 1908, and she didn't speak English, and she didn't speak French, and she was a very modest woman. She didn't wear a niqab, she wore something called a babushka, which I remember as a kid because I thought it was such a funny name. But my grandmother, because she didn't speak English and because she looked different than most other Canadians here at that time, was the butt of a lot of jokes. She did a lot of menial labor. She cleaned toilets and she cleaned office buildings and that. And she had 9 kids. 2 of them died. And my grandfather had a stroke, so he couldn't work. So she had a pretty tough life. But, you know, her best day was not as good as my worst day. So I feel very privileged. But she always said to me, she said, Glenn, I got the citizenship papers for our family. I came halfway around the world from Ukraine after my family was all killed in a war. And that was my contribution to the family. She always used to say to me, your job, Glenn, is to get a college or university education. You have to get that education to get a good job. And my grandmother's words are never truer than they are today because now 70% of jobs require a university or college education or a trade or an apprenticeship. So I want to make sure that all the sacrifices that our parents and our grandparents made for us weren't in vain. So I'm going to introduce a change in how we pay for universities and colleges. That students, hardworking families who want their kids to get that education don't have to pay for it up front. We use a system that's used in some other parts of the world where they get their education. They only pay their tuition after they get a job, and after they get a job that pays enough money where they can reasonably pay a percentage of their income back to their universities and colleges to pay for their education. I'm going to make it easier again because, you know, the people who most benefit often aren't just the people who get the education, but the businesses that hire those people. And businesses understand that a university college education is expensive. So I'm going to give them a tax break that when they hire someone, they'll be able to pay for their new employee's education. They'll help pay for that student's tuition. And I'll put in place tax incentives, tax write-offs, so that those hardworking students, when they get their first really good job, can write off a good chunk of their tuition against their taxes if they stay in Ontario. My grandmother, I think, would be pretty happy with that. Energy planning is hugely important. Energy is a big cost to business, to farmers, to small communities. So I'm proposing to bring to Ontario something that's happened in Alberta, British Columbia, which is called community energy planning. We'll go into a town, we'll ask the community leaders and what kinds of energy sources they want. But we'll do that in an informed way. Because first we'll map out how you use energy. We know that downtown businesses use energy in different ways at different times. Farmers use energy in different ways at different times. Residential houses, industrial facilities, airports use energy, all very differently. And this is what they did in Calgary. This is what they did in Osoyoos, BC, in small towns and large cities. They looked at how they were using energy, and then they figured out what was the best technology. Was it solar? Was it a cogeneration facility? Was it traditional natural gas? Was it thermal to heat housing? When I was mayor of Winnipeg, which is kind of interesting because it could get 40 degrees Celsius above and 40 degrees Celsius below. Thermal worked really well, as did hydro. So we look at, and we'd show what all of these technology costs, what they look like, whether you want windmills or whether you want thermal. And we'll let the communities and the municipalities build an energy plan. The same way they build a plan for water systems, for sewer systems, for road and transportations, for land use. The one thing our cities and towns and municipalities do really well is they plan really well. And they're very democratic. They get people involved in making choices. So energy in Ontario, if I'm Premier, will be not decisions made in some office tower downtown. They will be decisions made on main streets in communities across Ontario. And they'll be informed, so people will understand how they use energy, which technology is the best fit for their community, and give them choices about which type of technology mix works best for them, how they can create green energy and keep their air and water clean, how they can make it affordable, how they can take the unique advantages of energy. And I just want to close by giving you two examples of that. In downtown Toronto, all of those big office buildings would be very expensive to heat and cool if we had to use electricity to do it. But most of them are heated and cooled through something called deep lake cooling. We've got this great, amazing body of water called Lake Ontario, and the temperature differences between air and water temperature and higher levels of lake and low levels of lake allow for energy transfer, for heat transfer. And that's what heats and cools most of our buildings. Kind of a smart idea, I think. In Guelph, they did community energy planning and water mapping. They discovered that they thought they had to build another water treatment plant. That would have used a lot of electricity. They didn't have to do that because Karen Farbridge, my friend, is a really smart mayor. She got some very smart people to look at how could you use energy and the infrastructure in a different way to make it more productive. So now Guelph can produce twice as much clean water for people in Guelph than today with the same old plant by just using new productive technologies and that. So those are some of the ways that we can do it. We know that Northern Ontario has an energy surplus, but they pay really high energy prices. So by regional government in the north, Northerners will be able to take advantage of their natural advantages, set their own energy prices based on the unique advantages they have. That to me is smart, local democratic. It'll avoid us having to cancel gas plants, and the days of windmills being forced onto communities will be gone. And we'll see energy as a way to make money, not a way necessarily to spend money in ways we'd rather not. Thanks very much.